in Bali, in Israel, in London, in South Africa. I have over 200 leaders as part of my group in 36 industries in 17 countries, and we are all having the exact same issues. To add to that, the global internship of the young leaders, the questions, the challenges they are facing, and are trying to understand their mental health, their physical health, their friendship health, their work health, their fiscal health, are identical to the challenges we're facing in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. We are born from the same cloth, regardless of the color of our skin and the lives that we've lived. And this is a spectacular time just to share our thoughts, because they are absolutely relevant to everybody everywhere in the world right now. There may be climatic changes or political changes or different things that affect you everywhere else, but we are all going through the exact same thing. And I know it because I'm on the calls with these friends every single day. This is a spectacular opportunity to pivot, to take off that weight of perception of who you were, what your job had made you be, what your friendships had made you pretend you were, what relationships were smothering you, and spread those wings out and have a fresh opportunity and help each other primarily to start. India is the foundation, is the land of story. It's such a romantic, rich, high sense place. It's an absolute honor to get the opportunity to spend time and touch the land that you all walk, often without thought. For us, it is so special around the world. Spirituality isn't something you practice, it's something that you are born with and you live. You have a duty as a nation to share and spread and support this around the world right now. Those that are new nations, America included, need the stability and the backbone of countries like India. These podcasts need to be spread with other paler folk like me in opportunity places around the world. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity to share a small story that reflects the story of all the people that I'm working with around the world. We have one life, the road is complicated.
Test. It looks like we may have lost Will.
Yeah, I think we've lost Will. That was such a brilliant session. Naveen, are you there? Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll just quickly go on to our next speaker. This has been so amazing to hear from Sabas, Brian, and Will. They've been encouraging and inspiring, and we realize that they've spoken from the heart about how they are also going through this and how to get past this. It's really been encouraging and inspiring. We know people have spoken about the physical aspect of it, and normally with physical, we normally know what to do. We go to doctors or trainers or nutritionists and get the help. They give us a program to follow. But what happens when it's in your mind? We don't know. First of all, it's a taboo subject, right? When we talk about mental well-being, it's like, it's all in your mind. Get over it, get a hang of it. But how do we get the hang of it? It's who do we reach out to? How do we do it? So that's where Dr. Prakriti comes in. And I would like to invite her to tell us about Mind Matters.
Hi, thank you, Ratika, and thank you, team, for having me here. It's always lovely to talk about my favorite subject. I don't need any goading. It's like, you want to talk about mental health? I'm like, definitely, definitely. What I find fascinating about this time and the struggle that people are talking about, for me, there's been a silver lining in this, because mental health has always been a sort of an issue which nobody has addressed. Like Ratika is saying, there's been a taboo, there's been a sort of silence towards mental health. Everybody here who is going through a crisis, and we're all in this pandemic of the mind, is what I call it. But whoever is kind of facing a large challenge, it seems to me that those challenges always exist. They always existed, but we were unable to kind of find the time to pause and to actually think about our challenges. I know in my life as well, I've been running like with like 420 horsepower and like really not focused on my internal self. I mean, for me, my work allows me to do a little bit of introspection, so I manage to do it. But when I get patients and I get clients coming in, I can definitely assess that their worldview is outwardly. And Will, thank you for sharing the inner view. I think that was fantastic, because your sharing of the fact that you've introspected and you continue to introspect, and that's really what has allowed you to pivot, to recognize, what are the important things. I think that was so important, because in India, I know that we all are from a spiritual economy, if you want to call it that. We believe in it, but we don't do it. We don't spend that time. It's almost like meditation and mindfulness had to go to the West for us to honor it. The same with yoga. It had to go to the West, and then we kind of took it back to honor it. And now we're, talking about how important the mindset is. But these were innate to our heritage, but we didn't do anything about it. And it's time to regroup that and to understand that, my friends, is mindset, is how you work with your mindset. And there was a survey that the Pilgrim team did for everybody. And I think what came up was that a lot of people really don't focus on their mindset. And that's not surprising to me. It is actually exactly what I expected, because if we were to spend that time in our mindset, we would be a far happier nation and not 144 on the happiness scale. So we are in crisis. And Will also mentioned, which I'm really happy to repeat, that 91% of people were unhappy at the workplace. In India, this is 45% of people in the workplace are suffering and have been suffering. I'm talking about pre-pandemic. I'm not talking about the pandemic stage. This is all pre-pandemic. We're suffering. And this is the organized market. So we're not even talking about the disorganized marketplace, which actually has a lot more people that are suffering from low quality of sustenance for well-being around what they do. So I think it's really important to understand, that this crisis has brought to the light, brought to the fore really what mental health means. We were all dealing with it, but in an unspoken manner, because what we are as human beings is holographic. We have our internal worlds, me in reflection to myself. At this point also, we need to take a pause, because Indians in general, we are taught not to like ourselves as much as we should. We're always giving another person more credence for their values, of their opinions, of their behaviors, of their needs, and we put ourselves second. It's kind of part of our heritage of giving. Seva is part of our heritage. So we blossom through that, but we forget ourselves. And I see this with the youth, with kids, with younger people as well, because when we're even full, we don't tell our parents, we tell our parents we've had enough. Our parents, and Ratika's, seen me doing this as well. When we tell our kids, no, you haven't had enough, eat a little bit more. This makes the child from a young age believe that they don't know what's best for themselves. So in general, we believe that we don't know what's best for ourselves. And I use kind of a lot of the times, because it's something that every person here relates to. When your parents think you haven't had enough and they ask you to eat more. And then of course, on the other hand, we have we're fighting obesity and we're fighting diabetes and we're the capital of these kind of illnesses as well. But it stems from the fact that we are taught that we don't know our mindset. When we go into our organizations, into the educational institutions, it's the same thing. You are taught to memorize, taught to learn. You're not really taught to take situations, break them down, think critically about it, evaluate it, experiment with it. And those are the skills that you need at this point. And that's one of the things that everybody's really spoken about. Really try to understand what's the need, how do you pivot, what are the various aspects you need in your internal self, which is something I'm going to be talking about, to be able to build that resilience, to take the bull by the horns. So that's really important. And as we're talking about the holographic individual, we're talking about, like I said, me with myself, then you have the family. And remember, every single individual has their own frame of reference. How I think, how I feel, how I listen, how I reflect on how I listen is all personal to me. There are no two people in this world that have the same kind of reciprocal understanding. So it's important to take that sentence deeply and understand that no matter what I am saying, what you are receiving is based on your frame of reference and your understanding of your worldview and the exposure that you've had from your birth to now. So that's important, and I think it's critical. So you are also part of your entire family structure. So a lot of the thoughts that you get in this uncertain time is also to do with that structure. And I think somebody mentioned news and the fact that there's, this bad news being sold. And I think, Will, you did that. That is something that you need to remember, because bad news is what sells. And this is why all the news channels, I don't watch news. I know friends who know me know I don't watch the news. I mean, I hope that people will feed me with the right information. I don't watch it. There is a study that claims that people who watch the news more than 80% of what is the average are genuinely negative in their mindsets. So it's very important to really curtail what kind of exposure you give yourself, whether it be news, whether it be your friends and family who are not adding value. You can edit. You can edit what you need. And it's time you edit, because you've taken time now to reflect, to really understand, to let the boiling water simmer, and to be able to identify what adds value. Because as our personal human bill of rights, we have a very strong agenda with keeping ourselves happy. And this, again, I did with my kids, because I run a foundation called Podar Foundation as well. And we only focus on mental health awareness. And I said to my kids, they were off on holiday, and, I can't stand the internet and the fact that they're always on their digital media. So I said, come and do some research for me and tell me, how do people your age keep themselves happy? They spent a whole day being supported by my team. And they came back to me and said, there's nothing on the net that teaches us how to keep ourselves happy. It's actually your job as a parent to keep me happy. I was like, this is too much of a responsibility, that it is only my job to keep you happy. It is my job to keep me happy. It is your job to keep you happy. It is my job to support that. But there is no study anywhere done on how children can keep themselves happy. And this is very interesting, because we are not taught this. From the time that we are children, we are not taught how to keep ourselves happy. We are not taught how to help ourselves. We are not taught how to live through our own creative skills. And another thing that I have to mention happened not even 2 days ago. I had 3 kids. One of my kids was, kind of obsessed with Fortnite. So I said, tell me, what really excites you apart from gaming? What else could you do? There was silence. I said, I'm going away. You tell me in an hour, write it down, make a list of things that you can do on your own. What are the things that you can do on your own that sustain your well-being? On your own being the key word. The key sentence. And there was nothing he could come up with, except for, I can game, I can go online with my friends, and I can do, I can watch YouTube. And YouTube, that's also junk media. Anything junk that you put into your body is going to bring junk out. Everything you put in your body comes out. So what you put in, what you feed in, whether it be junk media, whether it be junk food, whether it be junk thoughts, junk emotions, all of that, or junk relationships, all of it is going to come out. So you need to be really curating what you put in to your life. And that is your duty. Even when it comes to the workplace, I know that everybody here wants to understand how do you do well in a situation like this. It starts with you and your relationship with yourself. And that is why that is the most important element, which we have forgotten. And even, the survey shows that people forget. Our children are more important. Our spouses are more important. Our work is more important. And it's almost like, instead of understanding that it starts me and my inner world, my family, my community, and then my work environment, it's kind of gone backwards. It's the work environment is given the most importance, then the community of your friends and other people that you can sort of hang out with, then you kind of take your family member, and then you kind of take your inner well-being. And this is a cycle which is in reverse. So it's really the time to flip that. And it's been the time to flip that. And when you flip that is when true happiness starts to evolve in you. And happiness not from the point of view of, oh, I'm really happy and bubbly and chirpy. No, happiness in the point of view of, I'm at peace. Because when you get to that level, and when you start understanding that your reactions, no matter where you've been and how you've kind of grown into this situation, your reactions are based on your fight and flight. And going back to the news, they utilize this fight and flight system. Our reptilian brain has the fight and flight. And this fight and flight is what causes us to respond to the environment the way in which we do. Fight means, there are people like, say, for example, people who pivoted in their job, they're fighters. So they say, oh, this is a problem. It's always been a problem. It's become more apparent now. What can I do about it? And I pivot and I start creating something which can help everybody around me, including myself. That is a fighter. It's like the well-being volunteers, which Ratika's mentioned. We started the well-being volunteers thinking that, oh, there is a need. There is no space out there. Nobody. 700 of you guys joined that platform. 700, not 70, not 100. And I remember Will was with us. Will was one of the first people that I called, said, I want to do this. And he was like, go for it. I was like, no, really, I'm serious. I really want to do this. And he was like, yeah, this is how you're going to go about it and do it. And it really took no time to find that right vibrational field for everybody else to kind of get attracted to. And it drew people in. Okay, there are only 340 people who are 100% active. The rest of them are not 100% active, but they want to do more. They want to give back. They're the fighters. They want to give back. Then you have the people that are in flight. The 60,000 people who collected somewhere and said, oh, you know what? This doesn't really matter and it's kind of blown out of proportion and I don't need a mask and let me go out there and, people got infected. Those are the ones in flight. They don't understand the importance of this. The importance that when I'm safe, you're safe, I'm keeping you safe. We're working for each other here. They don't understand that need. And that is the mindset. So again, going back to the mindset, very important. So those are the ones in flight. Then there are the ones who basically in freeze, the ones that have no idea what's happening and have blocked themselves, have gone into an aggravated pathological kind of stress where they are almost not accessible to anybody. They're not picking up your calls. They're not emotionally available. They're not emotionally available to themselves. They've kind of limited their interaction with the world. That's the person that goes into a state of freeze. There is a new state that has come up. And this is the most important state. And I want all of us to kind of sort of move between the fight and the fold phase. The fold phase is really the person that understands that, I need help. I need help. I'm drowning. I need help. I need that lifebuoy to come. I need people who've understood this to come and help me grow. And those are the people that, if I connect with what William is saying as well, about the fact that he started this elevation group, which is online, those are the people that are coming together to help each other. Those are the ones that if you feel like you're folding, you go there. If you feel like you're folding, like it was mentioned earlier that the helplines, I'm not sure exactly what those helplines were called, but it was mentioned earlier as well. Those are the helplines. People are there. And if you're folding, reach out, because this is not a battle you need to fight. And it has never been a battle that you need to fight alone. Mental health has never been a battle that you have to fight alone. And all of us need support. And I always found this, everybody, please ask questions. I kind of prefer an interactive session. So please ask questions if you want to. Anyway, going back, it's very important to understand that seeking help is not the weakness. Not seeking help is the weakness. And I remember when I came back to India, and I was in Toronto, and I came back to India, and I was like, really looking at this whole mental health aspect. And I was like, people should have kids until they've done courses on parenting, because, we're like, the future is in our hands. And literally, it's our job to ensure that we raise very, powerful individuals that can help society. I mean, that's what you're doing, right? You're creating the next generation of leaders. And if you're just creating, every one of us, especially in India, every one of us has high motivation and high sort of expectations from our children, whether it was our parents, whether it's us with our children. We all have this, and we're all sort of, desiring success. But we forget that mental health is the most important thing. So when you're driving that kid to the ground and you don't understand that, actually take a pause, because you don't need to drive your kid to the ground. Your kid will understand if you give him the skills to think, and you allow that thought process, and you allow the questioning, and you allow the ranting and the raving, and you allow that kind of, conversations, rather than expecting your kids to be mute and just listen to you. You are creating that kind of child that is going to be responsive in this environment, not only in this current environment, but in general, in the world, when he goes out to talk. And I think that's very important. So understand that we all go through fight, freeze, fold, but we have to keep navigating our circumstances and focus more on what the requirement is. And when we go into stress states, again, highlighting what most people are saying and have said on this platform, observation is the key. And observation goes into the heritage that we live with. Observation, observe your breath, observe your thoughts, observe what's coming to you is the key. Because when you observe, where's the stress really coming from. And one of the things we taught our well-being volunteers is, when people come to you and say they're stressed because of COVID, ask them to break it down, because nobody is stressed because of COVID. We're stressed because of things that have happened and triggers that have happened through this time, such as maybe our monetary stress, such as maybe feeling dysphoric. I mean, dysphoria is a lack of feeling like anything is worth it. You just feel like comatose almost. And then you have depression that comes about, and you have anxiety. So what is the trigger? Where is it coming from? And what has caused it? Like, is it the fact that, like I said, no two people have the same kind of feeling? So has it come from social isolation? Has it come from the fact that you can't talk to your friends, you can't meet your lovers? Has it come from the fact that you have very limited financial resources? Has it come from the fact that you can't your work-life balance has got disturbed? Has it come from the fact that you don't have space? I mean, what does it come from? Every one of us has a different thing. What is the observation that you've done to really identify what the problem is? Because when you do that, you understand whether the situation is a normal sort of stress that you're relating to, or whether it's a pathological one or an aggravated one, whatever you want to call it. Is it aggravated? Because if it's aggravated, observation will take you through to the therapy. What that means is that when you observe, and when you understand whether it's a chronic state or whether it's a regular state, you will be able to move your suboptimal level of functioning to an optimal level of functioning. And to do this, if you can just focus on whether it's in your physical body, like you are stressed, what does that mean to your body? Does that mean that you're having a backache? You have a side ache? And, just to pause and take you to another story. I was doing this workshop, and I have this thing called the Korean camera, and I thought, I'll use it on this bunch of, very personality A type, business oriented individuals, and I took this camera, and they were all like, it was at HUL, and they were, they're not really exposed to this kind of work, and I was like, your body can tell you exactly what your mind's going through. And so I put this on, and there was I think the most senior gentleman had come up, and he said, I said, I need volunteers. So he volunteered, really, volunteered to make sure that this doesn't work, and he came up, and I said, okay, great. So I, scanned him, and I was like, wow, somebody owes you money, and you're really holding on to that, and the pain is in your left-hand side of your back, and you can either let go of the fact that you are going to get this money, or you can hold on to it and continue with the backache. What do you want to do? And there was silence, because he never told anybody this, obviously. Yeah, definitely not me. It wasn't rigged. So he was like, how can you tell? Because your body holds on to the somatics of your emotions. If you are somebody who has a chronic backache, has sleep problems, is eating inaccurately or not eating for your best, you have something that we need to work with. These are the sort of red flags, and you need to identify the red flags. If you are irritable, if you are irritable with your spouse, if you are irritable with your kids, if you're irritable with your family members, okay, I've been asked to speak slower, so I'll take that slower. If you're irritable with your family members, spouse, and people around you, your work, your colleagues, that's a sign. You need to understand what the signs are. And when you understand what the signs are, you will be able to cope with the signs. So what we come to really after sort of the limited exposure that you have with yourself, we need to expand that. And that's called mental banking. So we want to call it, I call it banking, because you're banking the good bucks. You're banking what's needed. You're banking your understanding. You're banking the well-being practices. Well-being practices are 5. And that is why Kavita comes in as well. The well-being practices are 5. There's the mindset, which is what we're talking about. Where are you? What frame of reference do you have? How are you reacting to this sort of pandemic, and how can you move into response? How do you move into response is your human system that has been sort of implemented. You have to move from your maladaptive practices to your adaptive practices. And again, signs and symptoms are, I've started drinking a lot more. I went from like 2 drinks a night to 4 drinks a night, or I went from like, a pack of cigarettes to 2 packs of cigarettes, or these are signs that there's something going on. And you need to focus on that. If you're sleeping longer than you did, if you're not wanting to wake up in the morning, if you don't have the motivation to exercise, if you feel like everything is happening to you, these are signs. If you feel like people are attacking you, this is a sign. If you feel like the environment is not conducive to your ideas, this is also a sign. This is also a sign that you can reach out to somebody for, because these are the things that sort of disempower you. Anything that disempowers you is not going to create a positive impact. And mindsets are the most important thing for you to drive that train into well-being. So the other thing that we want to talk about when we're talking about this is really the 5 verticals. So when we start talking with the mindset and you've identified what it is, you start looking at your physical health. Because physical health, exercise, is actually equal to any medication that a depressant takes. So if you exercise, you don't need medication. It almost equates it. So because of the release in the hormones, the good feeling that you get, all those things really help you with your sort of inner feelings of wellness. Exercise is very important. I'm an ardent sort of, I'm constantly thinking about when I can get that time for exercise. It's every day, if not, 5 times a week. And it's important for all of us. If you can't take those, that half an hour or that, an hour or whatever it is, take 10 minutes, 3 times. Break it out into the day. Skip with an imaginary skipping rope if you don't have a skipping rope. There are no excuses. There's a wall. You can actually sort of sit against the wall on an imaginary chair to build the strength in your legs, the core, the hips. You can do a plank. If you have a bed, you have the space to do a plank. I mean, I know I've done this talk a lot, and people say, no, but that's kind of entitled, and we don't have the space to do this. You have the space. You have to have the space in your head to be able to do this. If you say, my kids are bothering me the whole time and I don't have the time, you have not created your personal boundaries. And that's, again, something that we need to talk about when it comes to mindset. Your personal boundaries are very important. And I had a doctor on a session the other day who said, I'm so meticulous and I've created all these scheduling and timelines and this and the other. And I still feel that, I'm unable to maximize my time and give myself that opportunity. And again, when that happened, I realized that it was, again, because of the fact that the scheduling might be there, but your conversation and your communication about who you are to the people around you doesn't take place. And what your needs are is not transparent. And when it's not transparent, you cannot create that space, because we are in a unit of people. And I think that's really, really critical. So it's important to understand that when we are faced with this, build your own inner resilience, because when you have inner resilience, you will be able to combat the external environment. So we may have, employers that are negative. We may have family members that are negative. But when we are positive and we build that structure within ourselves, we understand that the things that are not in your control are battles you can't fight. The things that are in your control, your mindset, your behavior, your feelings, your reaction, your thoughts, your inner wisdom, your education, your development, your constant learning, your curiosity. These are all things that are in your control. What is out of your control is, and I've had this before on a session, my employer is so negative and he's constantly putting me down, and how do I deal with this? You can only deal with something in yourself. You cannot change your employer, just like you probably cannot change a child that's constantly pushing that trigger. You can only change something within yourself. And what is that thing that you can change within yourself? It's first identify and observe, what is it about what the person is doing to you that is causing you anxiety or causing you stress? What is that thing? And really chunk it down to what is that one thing. So it could be, oh, he's disrespectful and I don't like it. Okay, he's disrespectful. How does that make you feel? It makes me feel bad. So him being disrespectful makes you feel bad because it's doing something to you. What is it doing to you? It makes me, sometimes believe that I am that, and I feel transparent, or B, it makes me believe that he's not valuing me, and I think that is something I cannot deal with. Anything I cannot deal with is a problem, right? If you cannot deal with something, if you must do something, if your boss must be like this and therefore you will be better, in psychology terms, it's called masturbation, because that really creates a pandemic in your mind. So there's no point masturbating, because you cannot change anybody else. You can change yourself. So when you want to change yourself, you think, okay, how do I build myself where the person and what the person does doesn't bother me? So I have to sort of value myself enough so that my voice of my own self-worth is louder than their voice of my self-worth. Again, observation. Where did that come from? Does it remind me of when my father put me down? Does it remind me of when somebody else in authority put me down? Where does it come from? Does it remind me of when my teachers put me down? And I can vouch for the fact that I was always put down. I think Ratika can vouch for me as well. I was always put down by anybody in authority because it didn't like the fact that I thought, right? But it didn't mess up my self-worth, because my self-belief was so strong. And that is what we have to focus on, self-belief. And I think self-belief is one of the takeaways that you need to have. So when you think of self-belief, what are the things that you need? You really need to understand, what is that self-belief and where do you get it from? So my self-belief comes from things that I've done in the past, that, okay, I know that I will survive. I know nobody can put me down. I know that I love myself. I know that I give value to myself. I give value to my body. So by the way, if you are not giving value to your body, you are anyway sending a message that you are not worth it. So understand that what you feed yourself through your mouth and what you feed yourself innately reflects with each other. So if you are not taking care of your well-being, don't expect anybody else to. If you're not taking care of your nutrition, don't expect anybody else to. If you're not taking care of your financial wellness, don't expect anybody else to. And that is why you've got to understand that you are really the propeller in your flight. And if you want to take off, if you want to get on that runway and fly, you need to power that engine, because there is nobody else that can power this engine. And I'm going to wrap up because, like I said, financial well-being becomes a very important aspect. And you need to focus on that as well, because without financial well-being and without these 5 verticals sort of being upright, you are going to fall flat on your face. So I think one of the key elements is still in line, and we're still waiting for that to come up. But build your resilience, recognize your own thoughts, recognize the triggers that other people are giving and sending to you, recognize what is in your control, what is not in your control, work on your own positive mindset, and focusing on the things that you can focus on, letting go of the things that you can't. Understand, as entrepreneurs or as people in this journey of well-being, you have a right to your own sort of propelling of your plane, and your psychological acceptance of this really would require you to sort of dismantle your old belief system, mantle a new belief system, and understand that your self-worth is not your net worth. Because when you don't understand that, you are going to fall, and I do not want you to fall. And if you are folding, reach out to those helplines, including ours. Reach out to me anytime. I'm always available. Radhika has my details, which she'll put up. And reach out to the other leaders that are supporting, us here, Mr. Jacob, Mr. Brian, like everybody's here, and everybody's talked about support. And understand the last prayer of like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is something that you live by, because when you live by that, you can only fight the battles that you can win. Thank you very much for this time and opportunity. And whenever the questions come up, we'll take them. Radhika, over to you.
Thank you so much, Prakriti. There were a few questions, and I know we're running way beyond time, and we still have a very important session with Kavita to cover. But I don't want to stop the question that some people had asked. So Session, I think you're asking about the next pandemic. This, I think, if you still want that answer, of course, I'll ask Prakriti or the previous speakers. But I think we should focus on the now rather than worry about what may or may not happen. Priya's asked a question, Prakriti, asking that even though we get inspired and excited about making that change right now, how do we sustain it when we hit a little bit of a roadblock and go back to our old ways? What triggers do you suggest for sustainability?
So this is a great question. And I actually think that we'll answer this already, because there are walls and you need to climb them. I was listening. There are walls and you need to climb them. And these walls just take you higher. They're stepping stones to something higher. So when you feel like you're getting low in energy, find the things that give you that energy. Because sustainability is the only keynote to success. There is no entrepreneur that will start something and will be successful in 2 days. There is none. And if you can hold on to your own belief system, if you can hold on to your own identification, and if you can hold on to understanding that you are solving a problem and you stick with it, that is what is needed. And I think in the words of Viktor Frankl, he wrote in Man's Search for Reason, that if you have a why, you will be able to accomplish anyhow. And I think that kind of resonates here. If you have a purpose, if you are purpose driven, you will not be let down. If you are going into an environment where you want to create something because you think it's only going to be of value, but it's not your purpose, you will be let down. So find that purpose, because if you find a purpose, you will never be tired of it. And if you're tired of it, you are not in purpose. You are not in purpose. And when you feel resentful and you feel like, okay, I'm not able to do this, group with people that are like-minded. Very important. We are community people. Group with those people. Get that fodder, because you need it. And that is what will sustain you. And like I said, not junk friends, not junk media, not junk anything, but strategic investment of time with friends, colleagues, peers, and support systems. Strategically do that, because you can reach out to those people. And I think Will gave a personal story about how he did that. And I think that's already been answered in that. So Radhika, thanks for asking the question. But I think all these things that we've spoken about have really highlighted how to do that.
Thank you. I'm quickly going to move on to Kavita, because we have crossed over time, and her session is also very important and people have been looking forward to that. But if you feel like your questions have not been answered, please do bring them forward and mail them to us. There is an email address which was given. Lavina, if we could just show the Podar Wellness slides, so at least they have the contact details. And I'm going to quickly request then Kavita to come on. We'll show the slides at the end of who you can reach out to.
Yeah, I'll be sharing that. I'll be sharing that here with everyone. I'll be putting all the email addresses and the contacts and the numbers and everything on the chat group, so that then they can just take it forward.
Perfect. Kavita has over 36 years of experience in financial counseling and in banking. She's been working with a lot of banks. Her specialties are private banking, asset management, general banking, and she's here to talk about financial well-being, because we know that one of the most important factors of our stress is finance. So let's quickly take it over to Kavita. And thank you all for staying with us, even though we're running beyond time. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you, Kavita.
Okay, hi everybody. It's been wonderful to have listened to Sabas and Brian and Will and Prakriti. Wealth of experience on the mental side and the personal experiences that they've had to share. And I think the one central theme that comes through from all the conversations that I've been listening to this afternoon is that happiness is the central theme of our lives. I add a little twist to that, which is that spirituality and mental health comes easier if your bank is full. Okay, so I always say this to people, because if you look at the big philanthropists in the world, why are they able to give away their money? It is because their banks are really full, and therefore they can start looking at the well-being of others and looking at greater good and pass their wealth on in different ways. The other very fascinating thing that has happened over the years is there is a change in Maslow's hierarchy. We all need to have a great Wi-Fi connection. I think that needs to come at the bottommost, even before hunger. I think Wi-Fi has become one of the things that we need to kind of stay connected and be connected with ourselves as well as the rest of the world in a meaningful fashion. The pandemic has shown us that we need to start thinking very differently. It's been a great time of introspection for all of us. Amazing amount of outcomes that have come from different sources in many different ways, particularly because we've all been able to spend quality time with ourselves. The environment, the air quality is substantially better. And I think the big question that I would like to leave everybody thinking about is that how will we become part and make this part of a lifelong permanent change. The last thing which I will say before I get on to the formal presentation, unfortunately this subject has to be dealt with a little bit formally, is that financial health is not taught in any school. We're taught accounts, we're taught tax, we're taught many subjects around it, but we are not taught how to handle our own personal finances. And that is one of the biggest things that we all need to do for our lives. I equate it to something like, if you eat, you sleep, you brush, you exercise, you meditate, you also need to think about your mental health on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I would request Lavina to put on the presentation, to share the screen. And I'll tell you a bit about how we go about doing. Lavina, are we on? Lavina? Hello?
Please give her a moment.
Yeah.
She got disconnected, but she's just coming on and we'll share the presentation.
Yeah. Okay, so just to give you a background till the presentation comes on, Vivek, my husband, and I are two people who have done long-term careers over the last 35 years with different banks. He's a CA, I was an MBA. I pioneered private banking in this country. He pioneered tax and married his passion for computers as well as accounting, and set up his own firm. Then when we reached age 50, we both felt that we had done enough for others, and why not start working for ourselves, because we had really met at work. And therefore we decided to start our company called Squirrel Consulting, which really focuses on financial literacy and assists people to understand what to do with their money, and more importantly, understand who they are with respect to their own money. So to ask the right questions, to invest in the right way, and so on. So I think Lavina has just started sharing the screen, waiting for it to come on. Yeah, so we can flip through that slide. I've already explained who we are, Kavita and Vivek Hari. I've just explained all of that. You can flip through in the interest of time. Yeah, so here's what we do. We help you manage money, we simplify investing, we keep your records, and remember what you have forgotten. And most importantly, we encourage, no, one slide before that I think is important. please just flip one slide before. Yeah, so I think this is a very key slide, money and mental health. Next slide. Basically, there's a vicious circle that happens that if you have money worries, your stress increases, it decreases the ability to manage, which contributes further to money worries, and it's a vicious circle that goes round and round. And I think this is a picture that you need to keep in your mind and start disengaging from this. Next slide. So let's talk about you. Next slide, please. Yeah, so let's talk about you. You are likely to have an existing corpus of investments, things like provident fund, superannuation, investment opportunities that abound. Lots of people talk to you about it. You have a good support system. A lot of times from your children and family, there is better health and better lifespan ahead of us. But what that means is that you have a longer retired life and you need a higher level of savings. You're dependent on your family. I think we're completely missing, the presentation is going at a completely different pace from where I am, Lavina. So I think she's taken me already to a page on common mistakes that we all make. So I'll just switch to that because that's what you're being able to see. The mistakes that we suffer from are myopia. That's immediate information. We see only the trouble that is in front of us. We focus on the short term.
We apologize for this. I believe there are some internet issues.
Okay, so we'll just focus on this. Never mind. Let's just focus on what is in front of us.
It has a graph, which has a table. If you can come to that one, please.
I'm sorry, this is probably not the thing to have done on this presentation. It's probably better that I just talk it through. So let me do that. You can, in fact, shut it off. I'll just talk through. It's fine. And we can share the presentation later. Yeah, so this is the slide I was on. Stop here, please. Okay, can you please hit enter? Please hit enter.
Can you share this from your screen?
No, I'm afraid I can't. So, okay, the common mistakes that this is typical tech problems. So let's just work around them. There we are. So we are fine. So I think the common mistakes that we make is myopia, that I'm 60 or I'm 40 or I'm 50. How much time do I have? Why bother to do this now? What's the point of getting started? Next tab, please. We focus on the short term. We focus on saving taxes, but not investing. We've made investments which are losing us money, but we don't want to get out of them. Information recency is just somebody has told us about an insurance policy. It doesn't matter how good, how bad, we just do it. There's too much information available. Inertia, that is not getting started at all, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are the common things that we all suffer from. And I think the biggest problem that we all suffer from is ignorance, saying, I don't know, I don't understand, this scares me, I pretend I know, I think I know, and so on. I'll tell you a very simple story of somebody who once told me that she was in a senior position and she said her banker, she understood nothing about finance, and her banker used to call her and say, shall I do this? Shall I sell this share? And she said, I didn't have the heart to tell her that I don't understand anything. So I would listen to her and then say, okay, I'll call you back in 2 days. And after 2 days, she'd say, I've thought about it. And yes, you can go ahead. Or just on a whim, she would say, no, you can't go ahead. So this pretending bit is a huge thing that happens in a lot of our lives. Okay. So there are many stages of investing. I don't know, must be a lot of different people on this call with different age profiles. I think the one mantra that I have for everyone is to start early and don't stop. The stage that you are in, if you're young, is that you focus on growing your capital, not on income, because you have a huge life of earning ahead of you. And when you're older, you reallocate for income, but you don't neglect growth, because now life expectancy is going up to the age of 90 almost, and we might be living for that long, God knows. I mean, the pandemics notwithstanding, it might just happen in that sense. So I think the big thing that we have all learned, there are many different investment opportunities, and Lavina and Ratika will share the presentation later because we are obviously having some difficulties in sharing our screens, that you will see where each of these investments fit with respect to risk, as well as liquidity, and whether it's high risk, high liquidity, low risk, low liquidity. I'm sorry, this is sounding like jargon. It would sound like jargon to me too without the presentation, but I guess this is something that we need to cope with. Then we practice something which is very important, which is called asset allocation, which is that we follow a simple thumb rule of whatever your age is, that part of that amount of money should be in fixed. The rest can be put at risk. And there's a simple overlaid rule to that, is that who are you and what is your risk appetite. So I think I'll just take you straight to what are the pandemic mantras that we have all understood, which is really that we need to simplify our lives, we need to manage, we need to invest, we need to create a legacy, and we need to evaluate. And with all of this, I think the things that we learned during the pandemic, which we hadn't earlier kind of dwelled on to such an extent, is that we need to estimate what are our 12-month expenses and keep that much amount of liquidity available to us at all times in a bank account. We need to embrace tech, because I think if you embrace technology, you will be able to conduct your day-to-day affairs online, and that becomes a very important aspect. The other big learning is that we've been doing surveys for the last 4 months, that all of us are actually spending a lot less. We haven't gone to malls, multiplexes, movies, bought clothes, etc., etc. Or even if we have, it's had much less of an impact on our income. So we can live happily on a lot less, and that's very important for us to understand. We need to ensure that we have good Wi-Fi, online access to our digital wallets, banks, shopping, and work. Okay, so that's really what it is in terms of pandemic learnings. Happy to talk individually, because I don't think that this kind of a presentation is it's one shoe doesn't fit all. Everybody, like for mental health, is at a different level with respect to financial literacy and financial well-being, and therefore it's important for people to reach out to their financial planners or somebody who is financially savvy around them to get an understanding of what is important for them. Okay, so it's extremely important that each one reaches out, just like Prakriti and Brian and everyone has shared about the fact that you need to get started and do some introspection and work on yourself with respect to your mental health. Financial health, if it's in place, really assists in keeping your mental health in better shape. I think I'll leave with that bit of soundbite, and I'm happy to take questions, and I will request the organizers to share the presentation at a later date. Lavina, Ratika, I'm done.
Yes. Thank you so much. Sorry for the presentation. I think we have different internet speeds, and therefore the words and the visuals don't match.
That's also a good learning.
But I'm going to attach the presentation here on the chat so that everyone has that. Are there any questions with regards to any financial guidance or support that anyone needs? Please do put it in the chat box. We can do this for a few minutes more. There's time. So any questions around financials, please put it in the chat box.
So there's one question that's come up from Sahu, which says, what percentage of income should one have in savings? I would say that it's a better way to do it is to estimate what are your monthly expenses and have 1 year's of expenses kept away in savings. And by expenses, I mean, if you're staying in rented property, it's rental, it's money to be for your food, children's education. So take a total of all of that, all your liabilities on a monthly basis, and keep that in a bank account. That should be liquid. And I used to, earlier, before pandemic, I would say 3 months. Now I say 1 year, because you don't know how long these things last.
Okay. I'm just attaching the presentation. I think everyone should have it in a moment or so. So they can just go through that.
Also, if I can add one thing, if it's not too much of a sort of, yeah, Kavita, known since I was like very young, because I did my first internship with Kavita at private banking and realized that's not my forte. So, but the point is that she's seen how much I've grown in security of myself as long as she was helping me take care of my finances. Because I'm one of those people who have no idea about money, right? So yep. Kavita's really mentioning those kind of people who have no idea and have that fear. That was me. And it has brought so much peace in my life to have that sort of, T crossed and that I dotted. So much peace in my life that I have, when creating even, Podar Wellness, I recognize the power of being able to understand how to work with what we have. And I think, Kavita, you haven't mentioned, and you really should mention that, you said you start with young, but please tell them how young you start with, because you start training like very young people.
So even, in fact, right, if parents are willing really from a newborn phase, and then people from the age group of 15, 16, 17, these days pocket money is also such a big thing. I mean, lots of people, young people, get 15 and 20,000 rupees as pocket money. So my message to parents is that tell them to save first. And even if you can put away 1,000 or 2,000, which, believe me, today a South Bombay maid and driver couple can put away 2,000 to 3,000 rupees a month. And if they do that, they can actually get out of a poverty trap in 1 generation. So that's all it takes to get out of these traps. Except that the catch is that you have to keep doing it, and you have to do it for the long term. And by the long term, I mean 25 and 30 years. But if you look at somebody like me, I've crossed that boundary of the 25, 30. If you look at somebody like Brian, you look at others in the age group of say 50 plus, we've crossed that boundary. We were all 20 and 30 and 40 and 50, but fortunate, and we didn't do the right things early in life. Believe me, I learned from the school of hard knocks. I made a lot of mistakes myself. And then my career, I think it was a natural, like Paki said, that you get into a career which is your calling. And for me, my calling was private banking, which I then realized I could move into a financial literacy realm and help others with it. Because what I got out of it was the ability to be financially literate and comfortable, which I now am in a position to share with others and tell them that you don't need to be born rich. I wasn't born rich. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. But you can become rich or comfortable to the extent that you need to be if you do the right things early in life with as little as 1,000 rupees a month at any age. I'll also add one simple line which I think hits the chord with a lot of people. My mother had a troubled marriage. And her message to me always was, apne ko pakka rakho. And I think that was a resounding success in my own life. I have a beautiful family and a loving husband and a great marriage and great children. But I think this apne ko pakka rakho has helped the entire family. So I would like to share it in that sense, because I think that is one of the big things in life, that if you're pakka yourself, you'll be monetarily, you'll be pakka in a lot of other ways too.
Kavita, I have a question of my own to ask. So I'm just going to be shameless.
Please.
men and wife both work, how is it that women can secure their own financial independence? And, is this something that maybe
No, I'm
in a way
losing your voice. 1 minute. Please say that again. Can't hear. Slight technical issues.
Kavita,
Yeah,
hi, this is Rohini. Kavita, there's a question which has come in which says,
yeah.
I don't have a job right now, was working as a freelancer in the industry, but don't know how much to do. Have shifted back to my parents' house in Pune because I ran out of money to survive here. Eventually, I will have to come back and start fresh. Do you think I can get a bank loan without having a stable job in hand?
Unfortunate answer to that is no, you will not, because I think banks need security on some basis. So no, short answer is no. It's a difficult proposition to start with nothing. It would be better that you went and did a job for a while. Whenever you can get a job, create some financial security for yourself with that salary and then get into a business. That's really the practical and honest answer. I don't want to give you any false hope, but I think it's important to just do a job and get some stability in.
Great. Thank you. I hope it answers your question.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Kavita and Prakriti, Sabas, Brian, and Will. We're really sorry about those little technical glitches that were there towards the end because of varying internet speeds.
No worries at all. Yeah.
But thank you all so much for joining us. We've really learned a lot, and I think some of it has been a little too much to take in this short time. So everybody can reach out to Podar Wellness and to Kavita to Skill Consulting. You can also reach out to Brian, to Sabas, and to Will if you have any questions, if you need to know how to pivot, if you need to know how to take control, because it does feel like we are losing control. It does feel like, how do I deal with my family? So like I said, the time is so short to try and get everything covered, to understand ourselves in this short time. So do use the numbers that we'll be sharing and reach out to these lovely people. Thank you again so much. Lavina, would you like to wrap up? And so if you're there, otherwise I'll do it.
Ratika, she's not there, so I think we should just do the closing session.
So just, Nikita, if you can just go, okay. So this is a field helpline for the Wellbeing Volunteers United. Otherwise, Podar Wellness, Eventpreneur, and all the other companies, you can always find them on the internet. The numbers are there. Thank you for sticking with us till the end. Even though the end was so messy, but that's our lives right now. Our lives are all messy, and we just have to laugh it off. And there's some things we can control and some things we can't. Unfortunately, this last bit was something we could not control, but we hope that going forward, we have better control on our lives and our time and can bounce back from this. Right. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.